Ben Hodges is a highly respected military expert. The retired United States Army officer served as commanding general for the US in Europe. He not only knows the US very well, but also Germany. Ben, thank you for making time for DW News. It's good to see you again.
Thank you for the privilege.
Ben, I would like to start with the situation in Ukraine. How likely is it that Russia is about to launch a new offensive, and is the Ukrainian army equipped to hold them off?
I do believe that Russia is attempting to surge a new offensive, something like that. They clearly have more troops than they did before, but I don't think that they have the capability to launch what we would consider technically a major offensive. They don't have the armored forces, the ability to break through. So it feels to me like it's more of a surge in number of people that may have some limited success, but nothing that's going to change the overall operational environment. Ukraine has enough to limit the Russian success. Of course, it's going to be very costly, casualties, ammunition.
So when you don't fear that the decision to send in German and American tanks was too late, as it will obviously take weeks, if not months, until they arrive?
Well, it is late in that it still pushes to the right. It reduces the flexibility of when Ukraine could have used these new systems. But in terms of the overall big picture, it's not too late. I'm not trying to be cute with words. It is late. And it will take, you're exactly right, it will take weeks for training to build up the logistics necessary, but it is never too late.
President Zelensky is urging the Western alliance now to deliver fighter jets. How fast could Ukrainian pilots be trained to fly them? And Ben, how likely is it that the US and other NATO countries would deliver them, given the risk that Russia might use this as a proof that NATO is directly involved in fighting?
The Kremlin narrative has always been anything that we do risk escalation because they want us to worry about it. I mean, if you go all the way back a year ago, the idea of Javelin or Stinger, very basic things, they threatened all kinds of horrible escalation and nothing has happened because they can't. They don't have anything else they can do other than obviously a nuclear escalation, which I think is extremely unlikely. And to provide aircraft is no different than providing HIMARS or Panzerhaubitze 2000. The capabilities that they need, long-range precision weapons, whether that's ATACMS, drones, F-16s, that would enable them to hit Russian air bases, logistics sites, transportation networks, and headquarters. Those are the capabilities they need. F-16s would be a part of that.
So you would support sending F-16s fighter jets to Ukraine?
Absolutely. Look, if the West continues, if we continue what we're doing now, maintain that level, Ukraine is absolutely going to win. There's no doubt about it. But it could take 1, 3, 5 years. That's a lot of innocent people are going to be killed over that period of time. So the sooner that we deliver them the capability to achieve a decisive outcome, the sooner that this can be over. I believe it could be over this year. I mean, this is the year Ukraine could actually defeat Russia, force them, compel them to leave Crimea, the Donbass, that will come later. So it's up to us on how long this goes. It's not Russia's choice to try and freeze it. It's not Ukraine. It's up to us on how long or short this can be.
How long will it take to train Ukrainian soldiers? And another question is, or debate is, whether the runways are really will be able to kind of hold these fighter jets in Ukraine.
All of these are considerations, but none of them make it unfeasible to provide the capability. You know, remember there were months ago that people were wringing their hands about how long will it take to train Ukrainians to learn how to use Patriot or how to use a tank. Instead of so much whining about it takes so long, get started. Put pilots in the cockpit today so that they can start training. And of course, Ukraine will select their best pilots that already know how to fly, to put them into another aircraft. So it's not like they're taking somebody out of university and starting at zero. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. You know, you've got to integrate what they're doing with long-range fires to suppress enemy air defense, for example. Ukraine has made it very clear that they have no interest in attacking and using weapons that the West provides to attack targets inside Russia. That they've said they won't do it. That's easy for us to monitor and to stop it if they were to. As for the runways, I mean, this is the kind of problem that is absolutely solvable.
Mm. So the Prime Minister from the United Kingdom kind of said that he's really considering sending fighter jets. Will this change the discourse also with the United States and then Germany and other allies?
I hope so. UK has done a very good job. I mean, they have been in the lead on several things. You know, the tanks, obviously, the first to do that. So it doesn't surprise me that they would be leading here. Of course, what I don't know is how much conversation, how much of this is coordinated. I mean, perhaps between UK, US, Germany, Paris, and so on, that they're making decisions to do things to help move the conversation forward. And so I think UK is doing a real service, whether it's coordinated or it just works out that way. Their support and their very forward-leaning approach has helped pull us all along.
So Ben, nobody in the Biden administration or DOD has been able to answer the question. So I'd like to ask you, is there a red line? So what would the US not send to Ukraine, no matter what the circumstances are?
I think the only red line, obviously, is boots on the ground. I mean, while I understand it, I wish the president had not said that over a year ago. You remember, he said before the Russian special military operation even started, he said, we won't do boots on the ground. Now, of course, the Ukrainians are not asking for that. They don't need that. And every time we've acted like, well, we can't do tanks or we can't do this, we end up doing it. And so I think the Ukrainians have figured out that eventually we will get to the next level of capability. So I'm reluctant to say that there is an absolute red line on any particular capability. I just wish that the administration would say, we want Ukraine to win. That's the thing they haven't been able to say. We want them to win, because when they say that, then you push capabilities that are needed instead of this incremental approach.
What would a win look like, and would kind of taking Crimea back be part of that, in your opinion?
It has to be. Ukraine has made it clear, and I agree with Ukrainians 100%, that full restoration of all of their sovereign territory is the desired end state. It has to be. One of the reasons that this war is so important for all of us in Europe and in the West is because this is about defending and preserving the international rules-based order, which includes the UN Charter, which specifies the sovereignty of nations. So this is part of what we're trying to preserve. If we don't, then everywhere else where China or Russia thinks that's in their power to change borders, we're going to continue dealing with this. So that's one thing. But more specifically to Ukraine, as long as Russia occupies Crimea, then they just wait for us to lose interest. 2 or 3 years from now, they can launch attacks again from Crimea, as they did a year ago. And also, maybe even more importantly, Ukraine will never be able to rebuild their economy as long as Russia sits there in Crimea and is able to block access up into Sea of Azov, where Ukraine formerly had 2 of their biggest ports, Mariupol and Berdyansk. And of course, Odessa, which is only 300 kilometers away, you've got 100 ships loaded with grain sitting in port in Odessa, waiting until a Russian inspector has verified that it's only grain. Why does Russia, I mean, I know this is a result of an agreement, but Russia only was able to do that because of their Black Sea fleet based in Sevastopol. That's why there cannot be a successful conclusion of this with Russia in possession of Crimea.
Ben, there is a tendency to, in the West, to say that the whole world is fighting along with Ukraine. That's not true. As we know, there are countries like China, Brazil, there's India, and after all, there is Turkey. Do you think that the EU should put more pressure on Turkey to pick a side?
Well, you're exactly right that the whole world is not involved. I think India, China, obviously Iran is actively supporting. Um, Turkey has done more good than bad, both with their control of the straits, blocking Russian warships from coming in and out, but also delivering real capability. I think actually it would be useful if the EU was pressing Turkey to be more helpful and other countries in the region. But this is also the responsibility of the United States. You know, we have never had a strategic approach to the Black Sea region. We talk about Georgia like it's an island, Ukraine like it's an island, Turkey like it's an island. Instead of looking, you know, step back from the map, put the Black Sea in the middle of the map, and then it changes how you think about the region. And so I think the United States and our allies should be taking a longer-term strategic view of the Black Sea region, and that would include repairing the relationship with our NATO ally, Turkey, and also give people in Georgia more confidence that they're not going to be left hanging. Right now, Georgia, it feels enormous pressure from Russia. The party that's in power, the Georgia Dream Party, frankly, has not been helpful at all. They have handcuffed themselves to the corpse of the Kremlin. And so I think the United States and others have got to take a longer-term strategic view of that region, which would include diplomacy and economic investment, not just military.
Ben, Zelensky is fighting corruption within his own government right now. What would happen if he, and God forbid that, would be badly hurt or even killed and not be able to lead his country anymore? A country with the best trained and equipped army right now in Europe, right? So has this very scenario be considered?
What he has set in motion is going to is not only having a positive effect in terms of attacking corruption, but also helping Ukrainian people develop a sense of national identity. The Ukrainians have always had a sense of cultural identity. They always knew they were not Russian, they were not something else, that they were Ukrainians. There's a long history of that. But in terms of a national identity, it feels to me like it's at a different level now, and that they recognize that not their future depends on Western integration, which means complying with the standards of the European Union, complying with the standards of NATO. So I think, you know, all of us can and will be replaced one day somehow. I don't know who would be next in line there in Kyiv, but I think that there are a lot of really talented women and men who could step up if necessary.
Ben, at the end of this very interesting conversation, I'd like to ask you to give me a best case and a worst case scenario for Ukraine.
Worst case is the West loses the will to support, which of course is what the Kremlin's hoping for. That we say, okay, we just can't do it anymore, and this is a stalemate, and that would be the worst case, because then Russia would have been rewarded for their thousands of war crimes, their aggression, violation of international law, violation of sovereignty. That would be the worst case. And then, of course, the Chinese would see that we were not up to the task. Best case is that the West says Ukraine should win, must win. Let's give them what they need, which would include longer range precision weapons so that they could liberate Crimea. And I believe if that was provided, they could liberate Crimea by the end of this summer, by the end of August.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much, and I'm sure we will talk soon again.
Look forward to that.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.